order in the way that we do things. So what we're going to do first of all is we're actually going to do our hinges. Then we're going to make the cover of our book, and I want to make the base pages, which is basically, if I just pull this out here, this bit, okay? That's what I want to do tonight. What I want to do as well, while you're working along, chatting, heckling in Wendy's case, is talk about these lists here. Now, I've got a birthday list, and there's one with each month. There is a to-do list, there's a address list, there's a shopping list, I think, in the front here. There's a few different sorts of lists that I've done. And I've been asked for like a password list, but before I put these lists in the group, because I've done them so that they're the right size to go in your book when it's complete, has anybody got any other ideas for lists that they would like to see on the lists? So let me know. Either drop me a line, pop it in the group, say here, whatever you think. So that's birthday list, shopping list, to-do list, address list, that sort of thing. So if you can think of anything else that you want, just let me know. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start our organiser class. So what we have here is quite a substantial book. It's 8 1/4 by, can't remember, forgotten already. I've just written the tutorial.
11 3/4.
7 1/4 by 8 1/2, roughly, something like that. Inches, so it's quite substantial. It's got 6 pages in there. All of them have these pull-out pages with a front pocket here for you to put things in, and a stacked pocket here in the back. Each of these pull out, and here you'll see in the middle where I've got my white card, that actually forms a little pocket when it's tucked away, that you can put things like receipts in, or lists, or cards, or whatever you want. Now, I've done this as an organiser because of these beautiful papers, which are fashion forward by Graphic 45. However, I would say that this doesn't have to be an organiser. Actually, it could be a book about anything that you wanted to. You could slip photographs, you know, in these little sort of pockets here. You could put tags with photos on here. You could, if you're careful and keep it flat, add photographs there as well. So it's very much a case of you can make this into whatever you want. So here's my book. What we're going to do now is get started, and like I said, I want to do it a little bit of a different way. I want to start with making our hinges because they take the longest to dry. So I am working on an English, hi Tracy, I am working on a, actually, before I go any further, Sue, you're saying about Christmas presents there. I did think this would make a really great Christmas planner, and we could do it in Christmas papers as well. In fact, actually, I'm tempted to do that with mine. We'll see. Glad to see you made it back.
It is nearly Christmas.
Pat, right. That's, yeah, it is nearly Christmas. Only 11 months to go. Hi, Jill. So, yes, moving swiftly on, I am working with paper card that is the English A4 size. This is different dependent on which country you are in. So just for future reference, an English A4, and I'm going to work in inches because A, I'm old, and B, that's the standard measurement for mini books, I think, is 11 3/4 inches in length. And it's 8 1/4 inches in width. Okay, so that's what I'm working on. When I say that I'm working on a piece of A4 paper, that's the size, roughly 11 3/4 by 8 and, what did I say? 8 1/4. Yeah, 8 1/4. Okay, so that's the size. If it's different, I think in America it's slightly bigger. Hi Mel. so you'd have to just cut that down to fit. So if you're in England and you have a piece of A4 card, that is what we are going to make our hinges out of. So for this part, you actually don't need to do any cutting at all. So what I want you to do is I want you to get your scoreboards and a piece of A4 card, and we are going to score on the 11 3/4 inch side, which means that we're putting the long side of A4 along the top of our scoreboard. So I want you to score at 1.5 inches, at 2 inches, at 2.5 inches, you'll see a pattern in a minute, at 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 4 inches. I hope you're getting the hang of this, because basically what we're doing is we are making 1/2 inch scores all the way along until we get to 10 inches. So 4.5 inches, 5 inches, 5.5 inches, 6 inches, 6.5 inches, 7 inches, whoops, 7 inches, 7.5 inches, 8 inches, 8.5 inches, 9 inches, nearly there, 9.5 inches, and 10 inches. Okay, so what we've got a space here of 1.5 inches, and here it's 1 3/4 inches, but we've got our score lines at 1/2 inch increments all the way from 1.5 up to 10 inches. Evening, Sam. Right, now we're going to actually fold so that we make our hinges. Now these two bits at the end, these two wider bits, they're going to attach to our book to actually hinge it down. And what we need to do is make mountains, valleys and gussets. I knew this was coming, from the lines that we've made. So this first line here, that's going to fold up, and then the next line, I want you to fold it down like that, so that what we're going to have, if you can see here, is like a V shape. Those are going to stick together eventually, because that's going to be our hinge. Then we're going to have a 1/2 inch gusset here, which means that we need to kind of leave that score mark, fold upwards, and then fold down on the next one, up on the next one. So once again, if you can see here, we've got a V. So that's going to be 2 of our hinges. Okay, so we're going to have another gusset, the next one, fold up, and then fold down. Nothing's working for me today. And then fold that next one up. Okay, so now you can see here we've got our hinge, then we've got a gusset, we've got a hinge, a gusset and a hinge. Okay, so keep going. Until you have 6 hinges. Okay, now I've got 4. Now Now I've got 5, and here's my final one. And now I've got 6. Okay, so when you look at it from the top, you've got your hinge here, gusset, hinge, gusset, hinge, gusset, hinge, gusset, hinge, and so on. Okay, so you're going to have 6 lots of hinges. Okay, now we need to make sure that they're burnished quite well, because this will help when we come to glue it. So I'm going to turn that over now, and to keep everything in place, what I like to do, I'm not the greatest lover of double-sided tape, as you know, however I do think it's got its uses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little spot of double-sided tape just in the middle of that first hinge and then the subsequent hinges, because this will hold it together whilst my wet glue dries, because the wet glue, in my opinion, is going to give you a much better hold in the long term. And if you've made my books before, you'll know that they are really solid. These are books that are meant to be used. They're not just pretty to look at, which they are, because, you know, great papers, but they've got to be, the point of books is that they're used, isn't it? Whether we fill them with photographs, whether we fill them, you know, in this case, you know, with our lists of what to do, whatever that is, these are books that need to be used, so they need to be structurally solid, and I think mine are. So I've put a little piece of double-sided tape there, and now I'm going to get my wet glue, and I am just going to go around that. Oh, that didn't work. We've cleaned all of these out tonight. I think it's full of water. Oh, I'll resort to the bottle. I'm going to fold that up now so that my hinge sticks together. Okay? So you can see now I've glued that down. So I've got my hinge there. Okay, next one. Okay, got 2 hinges glued together. Hi Jenny. Third one. Well, Jill, you can put photos in it. You can just also just look and stroke the pretty papers, which is what I tend to do. Did you hear that? He's not talking loud enough. Hi, Fiona. Mark just said I only look at the pretty papers when I'm not looking at him. Oh, nice, isn't it? Nice. Right, nearly there. And put some glue along that one. Stick that together and then glue along the last hinge. And stick that together. Right, let's turn it over. Okay, now I'm going to get my bone folder and I'm going to give it a right good squeeze. I don't know. Burnish. Make sure that the glue's nicely all over and that my hinges are nicely burnished. I'm just going to fold the hinges the other way and burnish that side as well. Okay, so that's the hinges done. It really is as easy as that. Just lift those up so you can just see a minute. So I've got my 6 hinges. Here they're all glued together, and that's what your back will look like. So I'm just going to flatten that off again, just quickly burnish it, and I'm going to put that underneath something heavy so that it dries and dries flat. Okay, so we can put that away for one moment. Okay, right, that's the worst bit done. If you can do that bit, you can do the rest dead easy. So what I want to do now is make the cover. So to make the cover, what I'm going to need you to get is your chipboard and your Tyvek. Now when I'm cutting out my chipboard, what I tend to do is measure it and draw it first, and then cut it out with a knife. So to start with, the 2 main pieces of the cover are cut at 7 by 8¼ inches, with the spine at 3½ by 8¼ inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is just measure 8¼ . If you've got an ordinary size piece of A4, you're going to find that it's 8¼ and that makes life a lot easier. This one that I'm using now is just slightly over. It's what we call A4 plus, which I think is much more like the American sizing. So I'm going to have to stand up to do this so I can see what I'm doing. Right. So I want one at 7, which leaves 3½ for my spine, and I'm just going to measure the same down here. So that's 7. So from this one piece of card here, this one piece of chipboard, I can get my cover and my spine. And then from my other piece of chipboard, I'm just going to measure 7 by 8¼ , which will be the other part. Whether the back or the front of the book, it really doesn't matter. So that's 8¼ by 7. Now don't throw away any of your offcuts once you've finished with them. I personally love this chipboard, this grey board, for using instead of foam pads on, you know, when I'm building up layers on things. Very simply because it sits a lot better, it's tougher, and it doesn't sort of like squidge down in the same way, so I kind of like that about it. So I keep all of my offcuts of chipboard and I use it when I'm layering up on, I don't know, scrapbook layouts or whatever. So now we're going to cut these out. I'm going to use a knife and a ruler, so if you are at all squeamish, look away, because I have a tendency to cut my fingers off. Tracy, which measurements do you want me to repeat? The size of the size of the cover.
I did type on it.
Yeah, the cover, you need 2 front and back, which is 7 inches by 8¼ inches, and you need a spine which is 3½ by 8¼ inches. Okay. So I find that sometimes, you know, when you're cutting out chipboard, it's quite a labour-intensive process. So what I do, rather than, you know, give myself pain in my hands, is I just draw my knife up and down fairly gently until I've cut through all of the cards. So it takes me several strokes to do that, but it's much easier on my wrist and my hands. So I will just, you know, gently push down on the chipboard, but I will go over it several times. Okay. Oh, sorry about that awful noise. Okay, I have a horrible feeling. No, that is the right size. It just looked really weird. Right, so now I'm going to cut out the other bit, the back cover. Okay.
Just ask Tracy to make sure she's got it now.
You all right now, Tracy? So the covers measure 7 by 8 1/4 inches with the spine at 3.5 by 8 1/4 inches. Ooh. Okay. So we've got our 2 covers and the spine. Don't worry if it's a little bit raggedy, you're never going to see it, it's not going to matter. No, what's up? Am I going too fast?
I've typed them in, can't I see my comments? Ask her if she can see it.
Mark's typed the comments in, Tracy. Can you see the comments? Yeah, because my piece of chipboard was slightly bigger. I was using A4 plus, so you don't need to slice some off. Your chipboard, if it's just an ordinary A4 piece, which the ones in the kit are 8 1/4, so all you need to do is measure 7 inches and the 3.5 inches for the spine. So yeah, don't worry, that's just because my chipboard is slightly bigger. Okay, does that help? Good stuff. Brilliant. See, I make it easy for you. Right, what we're going to do now is we are going to add our Tyvek. Now, Tyvek is a wonderful thing. I know I say this in every class that we do, but I love it, so I'll say it again. Looks like paper, feels like paper, used to make houses, doesn't tear. So it means that we can open and shut our books as much as we like, and it's not going to wreck the covers. So you will need a blade or a trimmer or some scissors to cut it. But you need to cut, this is a piece of A4, so this will make better sense now, Tracy. That will actually fit right in the middle of it. But if you cut this now at the 8 1/4 by 7 inches, although this is very rough, you could use the whole piece if you want to. It's not going to make any difference. I'm just saving it because, you know, I'm a bit of a skinflint. So I'm just going to cut that at roughly 7 inches. So there's my Tyvek. Okay. Now I'm going to add wet glue onto the spine of my book. And I'm going to place it roughly in the middle. We only need to eyeball it, doesn't have to be perfect. This is about strengthening your book. It's not bits that you're ever going to see again. Okay, so we've added our piece of chipboard right into the middle of our piece of Tyvek. Hi Tanya, I'll mention again, I have everything except the 12 by 12 patterns and solids. If you want to, or I'll message you afterwards, and I'll show you what I've got. I've definitely got the base kits. I've got the 8 by 8 papers. I've got a couple of charms left, but I haven't got the 12 by 12. Although I might be able to lay my hands on some more, but I'll have a chat with you anyway. Right, so here we go. We've got our Tyvek and chipboard middle. Now what we want to do is actually line this up. So there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either put a ruler along the bottom piece of your chipboard, or you can line it up on, I mean, I'm using my green cutting mat here, so the chipboard is actually sitting along one of the lines. Because what we're going to do is we're going to just put some wet glue onto the Tyvek, and we're going to place the first bit of our covers on. We're going to line it up so that it's flush with the bottom of our book. Be easier if I did it that way around, I think. But we're going to leave a little bit of a gap, okay? About 1/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/16, something like that. We need to just have a small gap here, okay? And we're going to do exactly the same on the other side as well.
Jill has said her Tyvek's only 8 1/4 by 6 3/4. Is it big enough?
Yeah, it'll be fine. No, Jill, honestly, it'll be absolutely fine. All you need to do is just stick your spine in the middle of it, and it'll give you plenty of space on either side. It'll be absolutely fine. So long as it's covering, you know, where these gaps are, not a problem at all. So I'm just going to line this up on the other side and stick it on top of the Tyvek and glue. So as you can see, I've got my 2 spaces here in between, because when that's dry, I'm going to chance it, but it means that my it means that my covers will just fold up and shut. There's just a little bit of a gap there, okay? But I know that it's all in line because I can see at the bottom that it lines up, okay? Right, how are we doing? Hi Sally, don't worry, you can watch it back. This'll, as soon as we've finished, this will be up in the group, so you know, you can just watch along for now if you like. Okay, right, so that's the cover of the book done. If you turn it over, you'll see that we've got the Tyvek there going across the spine and the 2 covers. So once again, we need to use our trusty double-sided tape, and what I want you to do is put double-sided tape all the way along here, but I want you to miss where those gaps are, the ones that we've got on the other side, okay? So if you just feel with your finger where the gaps are in the chipboard, and just put your tape on there so you know where to go. If you put your tape over that gap, I found that it really pulls on the cover, which isn't ideal at all. So I'm just going to add strips of double-sided tape all the way along. Now, just moving ahead a little bit, what we're doing now is we're actually going to cover the outside of our book. On my original one, I've actually not covered it in black card. I've gone straight in with the patterns and solids. It's entirely up to you how you do this, whether or not you cover it in black card, which is what I'm going to do now because I've run out of the patterns and solids, or if you want to cover it in black card, white card, whichever colour you're doing, and then go back in afterwards with whatever pattern paper you're using, and you just cover it like you would, you know, cover any sort of book that you're making. That is entirely up to you. So just think ahead to what you'd like to do. Like I said, I'm just covering mine in black card simply because I don't have any of the patterns and solids left. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. So right up to the edge, I'm going to feel where my gap is, that's there. And I'm going to just put my double-sided tape all the way along. Doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. No measuring allowed. Okay, so I also want to put it on the spine, but I want to make sure I'm not covering that gap. So I'm just going to have a bit of a feel. Okay, so I've got, hi Holly, I've got double-sided tape all the way along my cover there. Okay, like I said, I'm going to cover mine in plain card, but if you want to cover yours in the patterned paper that you've got, then that's absolutely fine. You can do it either way and it will work just as well. So this first part here, essentially our cover is now divided into 3. We've got the front, might be the back, doesn't really matter. We've got the spine, and then we've got the other part of the cover. And I'm just going to remove the double-sided tape from one part. So I want you to take off the double-sided tape. Well, it might be the best bit, Mel, but it's not if you're Maggie. Maggie always seems to have trouble getting her double-sided tape off. I don't know why. I haven't even got any nails either, and I seem to manage it. Maybe that's the trick, not having any nails. Right, there we go. Now, like I said, I'm using just my ordinary cardstock, so I've got a piece of A4 card here. And what I'm going to do is, obviously I can see where my gap is there. I am going to lay this down so my cover is just slightly before the gap. There. Doesn't matter if that bit's bigger because we're going to take it off in a minute. Okay, so here's my gap where my spine is. But my card is actually just before that, so it's only touching the cover, okay? I'm just going to cut that down slightly to make it a bit more equal. And I'm going to mitre the corners. Now, when I mitre the corners of the cover, I don't mitre all the way up to the corner of my book. Just never have. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to train my card to fit around here, because obviously with paper, as you know, it's full of fibres, and we need to break those fibres and make it easy to move so that we get a really, really sharp edge. So I'm just going to train it to start with, fold it over, and then I'm going to get my bone folder, which I had 2 minutes ago and I've now lost. And I'm going to make sure that I've got a really, really good sharp edge there. And I'm just going to push those corners down too. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on. Keep it in place while the wet glue dries. And I'm going to just put some wet glue onto my cardstock. And fold that over. Okay, so that is going to be drying in place now. With these bits, I've got my bit here that I've folded in. If you then train this bottom bit, in theory, when you fold it up, it will fit. It doesn't always, so I might want to just push that in a little tiny bit. If it's really, really bulky, you can always cut some of it out. Just for an example, I'll just cut a little bit out there. Don't cut it too tight, otherwise it's going to show. I'm just going to use my bone folder to make sure that I get a really, really good crease. Okay. Some double-sided tape just to keep it in place. She does now, Mel, yeah. She didn't. Okay, and we're going to fold that up, put it into place, make sure we've got really, really good adhesion, and make sure that that corner is sharp. Really important. Okay, we want a good sharp, can you see that? We want a good sharp corner there. Okay, because when we turn it over, we've got a good sharp corner. Okay, so we're going to do the other side now. So train it into position first of all. Start breaking those fibres up. Just going to slightly mitre that in. Just because I did the same with the other one, I'm just going to cut a little bit of that off. You don't have to. Depends how bothered you are about bulkiness, because it's not very bulky anyway at all. But we're just going to have that in place. Little bit of double-sided tape. And glue that down. Now you might be interested to know that Mel's actually going to be making this with you as well. Hasn't started tonight, but she will be catching up and you'll be putting all the stuff in the glue, won't you, Mel? See how you're getting on. Okay, so that's the, well, we might as well just call it the front cover now for ease of use. So that's the front cover done. We've got our mitered corners. And when you fold it over, you see we've got a really, really, really sharp, good cover on our book there. Okay. Now we're going to do exactly the same on the back. So I can see that that's where the tape starts on the other side of the gap. And I'm going to take that area of double-sided tape off. You know, I was thinking the other day about these classes and how well behaved it all is when we do it online. But if you ever get a chance to come to do a class with Mel and I, you'll find that the reality of a face-to-face class is somewhat different, isn't it, Mel? We're all very sedate and proper when we do it online. No swearing. Right, so I've taken all the bits of double-sided tape off. I'm going to get another piece of my A4 card. And I'm going to lay my cover down on that. Just trim that off a little bit. Sally, I've tried a lot of glues in my time. I would say absolutely categorically until recently I used Hobbycraft tacky glue and I absolutely loved it, thoroughly recommended it, but they seem to have changed their recipe, which is really unfortunate. I have been lobbying them to put it back, so I had to go and look for something that was quick to dry, that didn't make a mess, and my favourite glue is this one by Sticks 2. It's the 3D PVA. It is pH neutral, so if you're a scrapbooker like me, this is absolutely perfect. This one, I do have it in the shop, and I'm sure Mark will put up a link. Oh, he's already done it, bless him. So I absolutely love this glue. There is a cheaper version, which is this one, which is the Hobby and Craft PVA glue, which I also love. For general purpose, you absolutely can't beat this, but the reason why I like this one for my books is because it dries fairly quickly, and somehow although they both give exactly the same strong hold, this one is stronger quicker, if that makes sense. So this Sticks to 3D PVA is absolutely amazing, and it's all very well for me to say that, but I know a lot of the ladies in my classes have tried it. So if you are somebody who has used the Sticks too, then please feel free to put your point of view here on the comments. That would be great. I certainly love it, but obviously I'm biased. Right, okay, so I'm just going to miter my corners beautifully technically, as you can see, and I'm going to fold over this end here. Okay. A little bit of double-sided. Now, I don't know if you've been following me and my adventures in craft room tidying over the last couple of weeks, but I just want to tell you that I'm just working on a scrapbook layout for a class that I do in Stafford, and I needed some coloured card, and I can't tell you how wonderful it was to walk into the storeroom and not trip on stuff and know where everything was. So if you are tidying out your craft room or your craft space or your boxes or whatever, all I'm going to say is persevere, because it is so worth it. I found exactly what I wanted straight away, which never happens. And I didn't fall once. Right.
Sue said you aren't doing the wibbly motor corner cuts tonight.
No, I'm not doing the wibbly miter corner cut tonight, Sue, but I will be next time, I think. That's a special mitre for pockets. No, this is just a boring one. Boring, ordinary mitre. Burnishing is the key, people. Let that paper know who's in charge. Okay, make sure we've got a good sharp corner there, which we have, and onto the home straight now. Right. See, because this is card, it is quite a fold. It's quite, I'm not quite sure. It's quite stiff. And this glue, this sticks to 3D PVA. I know there's a little bit of double-sided tape there, but there isn't here, and that has just stuck down perfectly, and that's why I absolutely love it for books, because it's not dry, but it's held really quickly. So there we go. So that's the cover done. I've got my corners done, and all I've got to do now is put some paper on the spine. Now, on my original one, I've used this handmade snake paper, and unfortunately the wholesaler ran out of it and couldn't get any more. So for those of you that have had the kit, I've added in that little clip that I put here for you as a bit of a sorry for that. So I'm going to cover mine in just plain card, and if you're making the book with the 12 by 12 patterns and solids, you can either cover this whole bit in that card or in that paper, or you can do what I'm doing, which is covering it in just plain black card, and then I'll come to put the pattern papers on later. Okay, so I've got a gap here which is roughly 4 inches, so I am going to cut my piece of card to go over here. I am going to cut at 6 inches by roughly 10. It's rough, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we'll say 6 by 10 because that's just easy. Okay, so when I come to lay that over, that's going to cover that bit of the spine there. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off these bits of double-sided tape on the spine. But before I put down that piece of card, I'm going to take some more double-sided tape. I'm going to put it on my card like that. I am going to get my wet glue, and I am just going to put some wet glue, not too much because we don't want it to splodge everywhere, between the edge of my card and that double-sided tape. Okay. Right, now, little tip for you. I've got my marked, what do you call this thing, Mark? This thing, mat, measuring mat thing, cutting mat, I never remember. And I'm just going to lay that down so that I can see that it's square with the lines, because that's actually quite helpful. And I'm going to now lay this bit of the book, and I'm going to stand up and look, roughly in the middle of that piece there, like that. Okay, and I'm going to push it down so that I get a really, really good seal. I'm going to turn that over, and I'm going to make sure that that is stuck really, really well. Okay, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to train my card over like that. Stick on a little bit of double-sided tape. Wet glue. And fold that over. Now I'm just going to burnish it into place. Keep this flat, don't fold anything, because we need it to dry flat for now. Okay, so don't try folding it so that your book comes up. We don't want to do that at the moment. I'm going to turn it round, and we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to train our card over. I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape. And some wet glue, and I'm going to fold that up, and I'm going to burnish it until it sticks well. Okay. So this is the inside of my book. If I turn it over, I have covered the whole of the outside. I've got my spine, I've got the front and back cover. Now I want you to put that to one side for the moment. I just want it to dry a little bit before we come to put the hinges on. So what I also want to make tonight, actually I'm going to put it underneath here as well, put it with my hinges. What I also want to do tonight is make our base pages. We won't be adding them to the book, but at least they'll be done for next time. So when I talk about base pages, I'm talking about these bits that our inserts go into. Okay, so we're going to make those tonight. I recommend that you decorate them before you stick them into the book. Okay, so I want you to get your card that you're using for your base pages, and I want you to cut 6 pieces at 8 by 6. No, that can't be right. Yeah, 8 by 6 inches. Now you're only going to get one of these out of a sheet of English A4 paper, but I would recommend that you keep any sizable offcuts. So you're just going to, that's just going to be short, so keep that because you're going to need that for your tags later. So you've got a piece there that is 8 by 6 and I want you to cut 6 of those. Oh, hello Enfys, hello Leslie. That's nice. Oh, we have royalty amongst us tonight. Look, Enfys, I'm using my Fiskars trimmer, as always. I was just actually about to say that my lovely husband bought me a very fancy Fiskars trimmer that I have been after for years for Christmas. And I haven't tried it in any great detail yet, but I am going to be doing a comparison for you, which I will film, and I will do that as soon as possible, and then you can go and see it over on the Fiskarettes page. But I don't think I ever make any secret of how much I love my Fiskars trimmer. I understand congratulations are in order as well, because Enfys is going to be working with Trimcraft on their design team this year, so congrats. I don't know how many of these I've cut, do you know? No, I don't know either. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 6. Excellent. So I've got 6 there that are 8 inches by 6 inches. You've put 10 inches.
Right about 6. Down the bottom.
Oh yeah, down the bottom. Okay. And then I want you to cut 6 more, but I want you to cut them at 9 1/4 by 6 inches. So you're only going to get one of these out of each piece of card as well. So what I do is I cut the 9 1/4 first, then switch it round and cut it at 6. And you're going to need 6 of those as well. This book won't take as long as you think, because a lot of it is repetitive, because at the end of the day, the 6 pages that we've got, even though they look different because the papers are different, are made in exactly the same way. And I've talked and I've lost track again. 3. 4. 5. 6. So that's 6 at 9 1/4 by 6 inches. Now those ones that we've just cut, the 9 1/4 by 6 inch pieces, I want you to take those and I want you to grab your scoreboard. And we're going to score these on the 9 1/4 inch side, so the long one, the 9 1/4 inches along the top. We're going to make a score at 1/2 inch, and we are going to make a score at 8 and 3/4 inches. So essentially what we've got is a 1/2 inch score sort of flap thing on either side, and we're going to do exactly the same in each of them. So we're going to have the long piece along the top, the 9 1/4 inches up, butting up to the top of our scoreboard, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 8 3/4 inches, and that's the same on all 6. We are not going to do any sort of scoring on the 8 by 6 inch pieces. I've just scored around my thumb. Oh well, never mind. Okay, so you're scoring at 1/2 inch and at 8 3/4 inches. Okay, you can put your scoreboard away because we're not going to need that again tonight. Oh, put it the right way around. Okay, now each of these pages, like I said, is made in exactly the same way. So what I want you to do is I want you to find, which is bound to be buried by now, your bone folder, and I want you to fold on the score lines both of those flaps up and in towards the centre of your card, okay? And then I want you to burnish it really well. So when I'm burnishing, I tend to burnish on one side, turn it over and burnish on the other, okay? Then I'm going to take one of these pieces, which is the 8 by 6 inches, and I'm just going to show you that it slots in there, okay? It'll slot in exactly. So we're going to put some wet glue on the inside of those flaps. We're going to pop in that 8 by 6 inch piece. We're going to line it up so it butts up exactly side to side, and we are going to glue down those flaps, so that what we're going to be left with is the page with the flaps on top, and as you can see, it's almost like some sort of tube, and we've got the sides, both sides of it open, okay? And I want you to do that with all of the ones that we've got, so you're going to end up with 6 of those base pages. Now your homework before next time is to take these pages and to mat them. Now it's kind of important that when you're matting these pages, when it comes to decoration, all you're doing is you are matting with a flat piece of patterned paper. We don't want to put any embellishments other than extremely flat ones on that bit of the book, because it means that our inserts will not fit. They will not sit straight. And I will show you in just a moment exactly what I mean. Okay, so as I've said, the bit that we've just been making is this page here. So you can see that we've got the bit open there where we put our insert in. But because the insert goes in and then the pocket pages sit like that, we need to make sure that any decoration on here is completely flat. Jane, hiya, yeah, absolutely. As soon as we've finished here tonight, I'll save the video and it'll be up within seconds. So you haven't missed a thing, my love. Don't worry at all. Just for future reference, if you're going to mat your book and use the same, you want to use the same sort of pattern and decoration as I did, I will show you that what I've done is in the patterns and solids, this graphic 45 fashion forward patterns and solids, you get 2 sheets, I think it is, of each one. So I've matched it up so that I've used a sheet to cover both sides of my page, but then I've used the other piece to actually help mat the other bits of the insert, and I've got the matching insert there as well. You will have to be very, very careful when you're matting these books. It is tight when it comes to pattern paper. Not so much with the patterns and solids, but most definitely once we start using the 8x8 page, you'll have to be very careful, but we'll go through that, so don't worry. But what I'm saying is just be aware that when you're matting these pages that you might like to think a little more about the flow of the book. So here you can see I've got January and February on my first page. I've got March and April on the next. And I've used the blue here, which then goes through to the blue on there and on there. And all I'm saying, you're not going to do all of that tonight, obviously, but just be aware when you're putting your book together, when you're matting these pages, that you might like to think a little bit further ahead to how you mat the rest of your book. You might decide that you don't care one little bit and you just want a book that is a riot of colour and you don't care, and you know what, that is absolutely fine. Not a problem. Hi Gwen. But just to think of if that is what you want to do. So carrying on, we're going to make all 6 of these pages up, and like I said, your homework before next week is to mat those with your patterned paper. Now I am so tempted to make mine as a Christmas one, a Christmas planner, because I haven't got the 12 by 12 patterns and solids anymore. I'll have to have a think about that. But I can still go through and show you exactly how I've used the fashion forward papers. And like I said at the beginning as well, have a think about the inserts, the paper inserts, the lists that I've done. I want to put those up in the group. And like I said, I've got shopping lists, to-do lists, birthday lists, address lists. Somebody asked me for a password list. We can have a Christmas card list. Think about the sort of lists that you'd like, and I will do those and make those available to you. Okay. Let me know what you'd like to see. Thank you, Gwen. Yes, I think it's a good idea too. And as it happens, I have some graphic 45 paper that might just do. Okay, so when we're putting these in, our flaps are staying on the outside of the page, and we're slotting in that back part of the page there. Right, 2 more to go. Yes, by early next week, I'm hoping, Gwen. I've just done the order for them, and there's quite a few coming, so we won't be short. I've ordered 2. I've ordered the EK Tools one, which is the one that I use, but no difference with the other one that I've ordered, except it's white and pink, which people like. And on the pink one, you can the numbers are actually printed on, but they're printed on where it's embossed, so if it rubs off through use, you'll still be able to see the figures. It just depends what colourway you want, really, I think. Okay, nearly done. So once we've done this, I actually want to get our hinge in the book, because I do like for that to have... Oh, That would be my dad ringing, I have no doubt. I want to just make sure that that's glued and sticking before we come back next week. Okay. Right. So, last one. Dad?
Yes.
Thought so. I did tell you. Mind you, it was a couple of days ago. I love my dad. Well, I mean, obviously I love my dad. But I love my dad because he says things like, I didn't know people were interested in paper crafting and making books. Right, there we go. So I've now got 6 of these pages that are basically little tubes. So they're all made, and I'm going to cover those when I decide what sort of book I'm making. And I'm going to put those to one side. Remember where you've put them, because we are not going to be using these again until next week. Okay, right, now I want you to get your hinges, which have been drying, and I want you to get your book cover, which has been drying. And I'm going to say it again, do not fold your cover. We need it flat, okay? So there's my cover. Here are my hinges. So they've had a little bit of an opportunity to dry. I'm just going to stand them up. So you can see here that I've now got my hinges for my 6 pages. That's what the back looks like. That's what the front looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to add them onto the spine of our book. We're going to work out where the middle is, and we're going to glue it. Now this one is a little bit different than usual, and it's a whole lot easier, because even though we have to make sure that it's centered side to side, we don't have to make sure it's centered top to bottom, because our hinges are exactly the same height as the book. So I'm just going to measure with a pencil, well, with a ruler and a pencil, which I put somewhere safe. I had it not long ago. I'm just going to measure where the middle of the spine is. Now the spine is 3.5 inches, which means that the middle of it is 1 3/4 inches. Is that right? Yes. Yep. Okay, so 1 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to measure there so that I know. I can just see with my pencil mark where 1 3/4 inches is. I'm going to turn that round, because at this point it doesn't matter which is the front and the back of the book, unless you've put pattern paper on that is directional. And I'm just going to measure that there as well. Okay, and I know that I've got 6 hinges, so my middle is going to be directly in the valley between those 2 hinges. So I've got 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Okay, now very, very important, we need to make sure that we have got plenty of glue on this. So once again, I'm going to get my double-sided tape. I'm going to put a little bit on, just so that it holds my hinges in place. Hi, Joe. And I'm going to make sure that I have got plenty of wet glue. Not too much, because we don't want to be like 5-year-olds who just put so much glue on that it's just splodging everywhere. This is why I don't teach kids, by the way, because I can't bear to watch them with glue. But we need to make sure that there is enough. Make sure, really important, that it's on our hinges. Really, really important. Ooh. Okay, so plenty of glue, but not so much that there's great big blobs of it everywhere. Okay, And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this to the spine of my book, so I can see where the middle of my spine is. I know where the middle of my hinge is, and I am going to line that up. And I'm just going to make sure that it's right on the other side, nearly. Okay, and I am going to make sure that that is stuck down really, really well. Making the hinge might be the most difficult, but this bit is the most important. So I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure that this is stuck down absolutely brilliantly, and make sure that all of my gussets are stuck perfectly down to the spine of my book. Now, what I might do, I say might, what I do is I go back to it every so often. So probably about 10 minutes after this first bit is done and it's all glued down, I will go back and I will use my bone folder, go over it again to make sure that it is stuck down, because this is what makes our book work. This is the most important bit, and if this bit isn't stuck down properly, the rest of the book isn't going to work. So do not fold this. Don't fold this until next week when we all come back together, okay? I can't say that any more strongly than that. We need to make sure that it's dried really, really well, really flat, because if you do it too soon, it all wrinkles. Trust me, I've been there. Take my mistake as you're learning. We need to leave it. So as you can see here, I've now attached my hinge to my book. I've centered it left to right, top to bottom, it doesn't matter because the hinge is the length of the book. And I've actually burnished that down so that my hinge is sitting 100% as close as possible onto my book. Okay, does that make sense? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is as far as I wanted to get tonight. So I'm going to leave this to dry now until we meet again next Wednesday. But is everybody okay? Does everybody satisfied that you know what you're doing? I'm not going to be far away. If you need to ask me any questions, you can ask me in the group. You can message me, you know, whatever works for you. But I'm certainly not going to, you know, I am very happy to answer any questions that you've got. And if you want to put me some pictures up, for instance, Wendy, I want to see pictures of this cake that you promised you would eat while we did class. I think you should. So show me how you're getting on in the group. Have a think about the lists that you want. Keep burnishing your hinges, and I will see you back here next Wednesday at 7:30 English winter time. Are we on winter time? Is that GM? Whatever. Anyway. And just let me know if you've got any problems at all. So, thank you. Don't worry, Tracy, you'll catch up dead quick. Honestly, just keep watching it. That's the nice thing about this. You can keep going backwards and forwards. You can go backwards and forwards as often as you need to. But like I said, if any problems, just give me a shout and I will. Oh, I'm just about to knock everything over. I'm going to say goodbye now, but you carry on without me and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks for joining me.
Bye.